I've talked a fair amount of kind of bollocks today. I'm not sure how becoming that is of a mid-50s British male. I think, I think the expectation is that we suppress all this deep down inside. Suppress. And then, have a heart attack in a few years' time. I may not upload this. Hello everyone. It is, in the words of the Sun newspaper when I was younger, an absolute scorcher. I mean, by British standards, that means anything over about 20 degrees. So I think it's like 22, 23 here in Sheffield. And, it's warm. I am inappropriately dressed for this weather. I've been out barely a minute and I can already feel myself sweating. Alright, just to sort of clarify where we are and what we're doing, and particularly if it's the first time you're here, if it is, I'm really delighted that you're here. I am a delivery driver for Uber Eats and Deliveroo here in the UK, in a city called Sheffield, which is in the north of England. A beautiful city. Alright, so this is what I do. I pick up stuff, take away supermarket orders, and take it to people. It's not rocket science. I think you understand the basic concept. Excuse me, you've got 7978. Is it that one?
That's that one.
Okay, great. Can I grab that?
Yeah, let me just check it.
Okay, just make sure it's 7978, yeah?
7978.
All right, let me just go off this order. So I deliver stuff and record it, and some people quite like watching that. I'm not sure I've got that much left to say about the delivery process itself. I've been doing this a couple of years now. I think I've talked about every possible thing you can talk about when it comes to delivering. I know a lot of people do sort of challenges. They're like, oh, can I earn 100 quid in X number of hours, or what if I deliver at 3 o'clock in the morning and see how much I earn? And they all do that very, very well, I have to say. I'm an older man. I'm not sure I've got the energy for that. What I can offer is sort of Olympic level digressions, blatherings, meanderings, witterings. I feel I'm a bit like those teachers you had at school who, if you could distract them for sort of a minute with a topic they're interested in, they will happily talk about that for sort of 15, 20 minutes and you can get out of studying for that time. I'm like that. I'm that geography teacher who will happily blather on about his holiday to Indonesia for 20 minutes and you can kind of sit back and do nothing for a bit. So if you like that kind of thing, you're in the right place. If not, then this is going to be a long video. Other sort of salient, relevant facts about me. I've been doing this job about a couple of years, I think now, maybe just under a couple of years. But for the longest time, it was just a sort of a second job, a side hustle. My main job was working at the university here in Sheffield. And I started to do this just as a way to earn a little bit of extra beer money, a bit of extra cash. But even if you're not necessarily that keen, you could always turn the sound down and just watch what's going on. Because Sheffield is a surprisingly beautiful city. Reputationally, it's not necessarily considered that way. Historically, it's a bit of an industrial city, steel industry and all that kind of stuff, but that's kind of changed in the last 20 or 30, 40 years, and now it's very hilly, very green. So you can always just look at that. All right, let me just do this first delivery. All right. All right, mate. How are you?
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. And your 2-digit code?
47.
47. Thank you so much, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. The other thing you might have to get used to a little bit is a certain amount of kind of puffing and panting. I'm 53 and I'm not particularly fit, and I'm in a very hot motorbike jacket and a very hot and enclosed helmet with a microphone very close to my face. And I do have some sort of breathing sinus issues, so I do try and edit some of that out, but it's bloody tough. Okay, yeah, so coming back to the other thing, yeah, until recently, until about 5 months ago, I worked at the University of Sheffield. Things went a bit, well, when all it's up there, to say the least. Right, things went pear-shaped there, just to clean that up a bit. And started offering around voluntary redundancy, despite probably all better instincts. From a sort of financial survival perspective, I decided to take it. So this is my job now, this is what I do. And I think there was a bit of a moment of growth a couple of days ago, when someone asked me, what do I do? And for the first time I actually said, I'm a delivery driver. I work for Uber Eats and Deliveroo, and that's my job. Didn't qualify it. I didn't say, oh, I'm doing this temporarily. I'm doing it as a side job. It's a side hustle, and, you know, something I'm just going to do until I can find something better. Point blank said, this is my job. It's the first time I'd said that. Even after I'd stopped working in the university for the first few months, people would ask me, what do I do, or what am I doing? And I would always say, oh, well, I recently just took redundancy from the University of Sheffield, or I've been working at the University of Sheffield recently, or I'm taking a few months off just to sort of get my together. You see, I didn't want to sort of admit to people that this was my proper job, because I'm a snobby. You know, I grew up in a working class family, and, you know, the goal was always to do better, earn more money, get a better education, live better than your parents did. But then it's very easy to let that job you take, and that job you study for, and that job you work for all those years define you far more than it should. Cheers. Alright, mate, have you got 7502? Is it that one? Cheers, mate. See ya. I remember a few years back when the series Stranger Things came out. Noticing the sort of the dad character in the series. You know, I can't remember his name, but he's the kind of the dad of one of the main characters, and he's kind of this sort of grey, sort of lifeless, sort of soulless character who, you know, clearly works in an office somewhere and just wants a quiet life, and, you know, whenever anyone tells him what's going on, he's just like, oh, just, you know, leave me out of it, I don't want to deal with this, and denies, you know, what's happening. And of course he was portrayed as this sort of foolish, ridiculous character, wasn't expected to have much sympathy with, but I remember at the time feeling tremendously sympathetic towards him, because I think anyone who's sort of worked in an office and done a job like that will, you know that feeling, know the feeling of coming home and, you know, wanting to just have a quiet bloody evening without too much adventure or fuss, without having to deal with sort of demons and, you know, netherworlds and stuff. And I never really had to deal with that, but still, you understand the basic concept. And while at the time I remember thinking I was quite sympathetic towards him, I thought, well, probably I shouldn't be. That shouldn't be what I aspire to be, even though it's not a bad thing necessarily. Because, you know, we didn't get the interior life of Stranger Things dad. You know, he probably had a day at work, boss on his back, threat of redundancy, whatever, you know. All that stuff we don't know about. And that's why he didn't want to deal with the upside down world. And that's understandable. But at the same time, it's easy to kind of realise you're becoming a bit like that, and that's maybe not the best thing in the world, to let the sort of job encompass you so much that everything else becomes secondary. And family and hobbies and everything outside of work becomes sort of a pale shadow. Not good at all. And I think when the chance of voluntary redundancy came up, I realised that if I didn't take it, that's what I was kind of destined to turn into. I possibly was already turning into it. Whew, this is a bit on the heavy side, isn't it? I mean, what I'm talking about, not what I'm carrying. It's absolutely nothing. It's just a packet of tobacco and a pint of milk, I think. And I haven't regretted taking redundancy. Not for one day since doing it. I do like doing this job, and I like the fact that it is well, how can I describe it? It's a kind of a quintessentially background job. It's not a criticism of the job, but the whole point of the job is that if you do it well, no one kind of notices you. You kind of glide into the restaurant, pick up the order quickly, efficiently, deliver it with no fuss, no spills, no drops, nothing missing. People don't necessarily notice who you are. I'm sure the same if I said to you, what was the name of the last delivery driver who you ordered something from? Unless, he did something awful. You probably don't remember. Because it's a job that lets me focus on the other stuff in my life.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad.
You must be warm.
Yes, way too warm. I'm ridiculously overdressed for today, but there we go. It's the only top I've got, so cheers. Do you have to check your ID?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
And then the code is 87.
87?
87.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Lovely day, thank
Yeah,
you.
bye-bye. All right, well, that one's done. And now, sort of ironically, this has never happened before, certainly since I moved from my previous job, is that I'm actually going back to my previous place of work to pick up an order. I'm going to the University of Sheffield Student Union to pick up some bubble tea for someone. So yeah, that's weird. All right, here we go. University of Sheffield Student Union. Okay. Hello. That's right. Okay. Cheers. All right, let's get off to this one. Just as I was picking up the order there, I noticed the place I was picking up from was literally their last day. They were closing today on the 13th of June. So I wonder if this is a kind of a last hurrah for whoever's ordering this, last chance to get a drink from their favourite bubble tea place. Maybe I'll ask them when I get there. And I remember when I was thinking about whether to take redundancy or not from a job at the University of Sheffield, where we just were, kind of a couple of lines of verse from T.S. Eliot just kept sort of popping into my head. I don't know why. I haven't read poetry for many, many years. But when I was a teenager, I did read a fair amount. And there was a poem called The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. I think that's the title. A very famous poem. Many people will know it, by T.S. Eliot. And it's a poem about a man, I think, walking through the streets of London, an older man, on his way to a sort of a momentous juncture in his life. It's never really made clear what that is, but possibly asking a woman's hand in marriage. And it's all about him sort of evaluating his life until that point, and him trying to work out whether he's going to make this momentous decision or not, or whether he'll back out at the last moment. And it's all about him sort of working out his place in the world and what impact he's had on it. And I remember when I read it as a teenager, it kind of haunted me a little bit. There was a couple of lines in there which was Again, I may butcher this, but I'll put the actual lines up, but I vaguely remember it was something like, I'm not Prince Hamlet, nor was I meant to be. I'm an attendant lord, one that will do to start a progress, swell a scene or two. I think that's it. And I remember reading that as a teenager, and it sort of felt like this warning to not waste your life. Be the Prince Hamlet. When you're younger and you think that's what you're going to be when you grow older. Something significant, something important. You're going to have an impact on people's lives. When I think about those lines now as a 53-year-old, they have a whole different spin on them, really. Because at 53, probably, if you haven't made some sort of big impact on the world, you're probably not going to at this stage. But then when you're at my age, you kind of reinterpret it as, well, yeah, maybe in my job I wasn't Prince Hamlet, but does it matter? And that's the big question. And the answer to me was no, it doesn't. But I think that's why sometimes we think our job makes us important. We want to be the sort of Prince Hamlet at our work, or the main character at our work. The trick is to become the main character to the people around you. People who really love you, respect you, your family, your friends. And I know this is tired ground, and it sometimes takes some of us longer to realise this than others, but your job is not your family, and however much they use sort of family words, they don't. I realised that in the last few years of my job, as I could see the way things were going, and it was just the people at the top who were just doing whatever they could to save their own skin, and if it meant making loads of people redundant, they were happy to do that. So I just jumped before I might have been pushed, to be honest with you. So here I am. I am a delivery driver. A fairly decent one. I wouldn't say fantastic, I'm fairly decent. Oh, there you go, mate, sorry. Wasn't sure if it's back or front. 53, cheers. Thank you, let me just check. Do you know they're closing today?
Oh, are they?
Yeah, this is their last day apparently. So you probably got it in on a good day, actually. You got your final drink from them.
29 orders from them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There you go. I thought this was like your final goodbye to them or something, but that's okay. Yeah, it's not going to be open anymore. Cheers. Thanks. Well, it's bloody brisk today, I tell you. Just order after order. Got another one in from Morrison's. They've all been about like £5-6. Probably made 16-17 quid already. I've only been out just under an hour. I felt a bit sorry for that poor guy. He said he'd ordered from them 29 times before in the past, so obviously really like them. Oh my dear, have you got 5327?
5327.
5327. That one, I think. Take those two. Oh, someone's baking. I'm assuming this person is baking something significant, because it's 2 big bags of eggs, flour, sugar. I'm never sure if I should let my curiosity get the better of me sometimes when I'm delivering, because I sometimes just like to ask, "Ooh, are you baking something?" Comes back to that point about delivery drivers are meant to be sort of background characters who you barely notice. But sometimes, you know, I just feel I've got to ask. Not like the time someone ordered a Red Bull packet of condoms and a tub of Ben & Jerry's ice creams. I didn't ask them what they were up to. I think I had a rough idea. Or the time I delivered a one box, and this is the only thing that was in the order, was one box of anti-diarrhea medication to someone who, when I dropped it off, they sort of didn't come to the door. There was a big garden fence that I couldn't really see over, and they just sort of grabbed it over the top of that. I felt they were pretty desperate to get a hold of it. Again, probably didn't need an explanation as to what they were doing either. I've talked a fair amount of kind of introspective bollocks today, I realise. I'm not sure how becoming that is of a mid-50s British male. I think, you know, I think the expectation is that we suppress all this deep down inside. Suppress, and then, you know, have a heart attack in a few years' time. So I may not upload this. It feels very navel-gazing. All right, my dear, how are you? There you go. Whew. There you go. It is quite hot. Some serious baking going on there. So yeah. Oh, have you got your code? 55, thank you. And it was kind of interesting, actually. A couple of days ago, I had a chat with a couple of people who rented their account. Just to give a bit of context, what this all means is that obviously a lot of the people doing this job are working illegally. They're, you know, they don't have the right paperwork to work in the UK. So the way that they get this job is that they rent someone else's account. So someone will actually have the Uber Eats account, and then they'll rent that out and take a percentage of the earnings of the person they rent it to. So they might take, say, 20% of what they earn. This person sort of slices off something off the top from that. I've had a few people ask me if I'd rent my account to them in like my YouTube comments, which is always a bit weird. But obviously I wouldn't do that. But the other day I was doing a delivery, and as I finished the delivery, there's a couple of guys stood by a car and they kind of flagged me down. They seemed harmless enough, so I sort of stopped. I thought they were just going to ask something about the bike, which they did. They're asking me something, you know. Often people do ask about the electric bike and how many miles it gets and how long do you have to charge it for, blah blah blah. And so we got chatting, and then he said, oh yeah, I used to do that. I used to be an Uber driver, delivery driver. And he goes, oh, but now I just rent my account. And I was genuinely curious to find out a bit about this. And his buddy who was there also did the same. And I said, oh yeah. And I was just saying, oh, you know, how much do you take? He goes, oh, you know, 20%. So that's quite a slice, really. That means these people are going to have to really work some to earn anything half decent and go off and deliver. That's why sometimes if you order from Deliveroo or Uber Eats, the name on the account doesn't match the person who actually comes and delivers it. Maybe a completely different name, or they look completely differently. Sometimes completely different gender as well. Now, from a purely selfish perspective, obviously the fewer people doing this job, the better for me, because there's more orders to go around and they're going to have to put prices up, and it means I get paid more and things like that. But this whole renting of accounts thing, I think, is pretty exploitative, really, of people already in a difficult situation. I mean, it's good that they're working, it's good that they're trying to do something, trying to earn money. The problem is it's how much the owner of the account is slicing off the top, and do they just keep slicing and slicing and slicing? You know, 1 month is 20%, a few months later it's 40%, and forcing people into more and more work and working more and more hours just to earn minimum wage, or even the bare minimum to survive. Alright, I've got another order coming in. This is from a burger place called Munchies. Ooh. Just going to park behind here so they can't see me. There's traffic wardens there. So I'm going to hide behind here so they can't see me. Okay. No problem. There's no rush. Take your time. It's okay. Sam A. Cheers. Thank you. Yeah, stuck on that traffic wardens. Let me just pick up for brunch and lunch. 6019.
That's the food and that's the drink.
Okay. Is there anything covering there?
It's covered, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just need to, as long as you don't chuck them, that we say.
I try not to.
I've had a lot of people.
But yeah, I think my camera battery conked out halfway through that pickup of the order. But as the guy was talking to me about, because I asked him, are the drinks covered? I was asking whether those drinks covered, just so I don't spill them. And he was like, yeah, don't worry. But then he was saying, he was saying, just be careful, don't spill them. And I said, no, I won't. And he was saying, some drivers are terrible. And, I take his point. But I was also trying to make the point as well that a lot of cafes don't pack their drinks terribly well either. Most obviously McDonald's, but a lot of them don't. And I don't know how they expect sometimes drivers to they know that drivers are going to be riding either on motorbikes or bikes. Sometimes cars, but most of the time in something where it's going to be a bit up and down. Just handing a sort of a coffee in a cup with a sort of barely fixed on lid and expecting us to somehow work out how to carry that so it doesn't spill is really, really difficult. My advice generally to people is don't order drinks from takeaways unless it's something that's in a bottle or a can. But even then, there's a good chance they'll stick in the can or bottle, the cold can or bottle with the hot food, not the delivery driver, the restaurant or the takeaway, and it will just, your food will end up lukewarm and your drink will end up lukewarm as well. But if it's a drink with a lid on, like a coffee or something, forget it. Shakes are okay. Boba teas are the best one, just because the boba tea restaurants, they have these special machines that seal the lid. So even if they fall over in the bag, they're not going to leak, or at least very rarely do. All right, buddy. There you go. Have you got the code?
56.
56. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Oh yeah,
All right, mate.
what are we doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
Oh, but it just started. So
Okay.
there you go. Yep.
It's 2546. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hey, excited.
Thank you.
There you go, 78. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye bye. Well, that's the end of my shift. Hope you enjoyed it. I think I made about £38 in the end in about 2.5 hours, which is okay, not too bad on a Friday. Hope you have a wonderful day, weekend, evening, and enjoy whatever you're doing. See ya.